Live.
SRM Institute of Science and Technology, Engineering, Medical and Health Sciences, Management, Science and Humanities, Law, Agriculture Sciences. Admissions open.
Good evening, everyone. Wonderful to meet again. I hope you have all had a wonderful day today of learning, of inquiry, and getting into all the details that was shared by Raja sir in the morning. Today we have yet another eminent speaker with us, a very special person. He is none other than architect Shakti Murugan Rajendran. He is the principal architect of Gravity Architecture and Engineering and also the associate partner of Adi Parashakti and Associates. He completed his BR in Tyagaraja College of Engineering, Madurai, and his master's from SPA, Delhi. His 15 years of expertise in multidisciplinary disciplinary fields ranging from architectural design, heritage conservation, urban renewal, and he is also a government advisory on urban renewal and architecture. He is a visiting faculty to many various colleges and universities, including the famous School of Planning and Architecture, Vijayawada. Welcome, Shakti Murugan sir. Thank you for giving us your valuable time, and please share your ideas and suggestions to all our aspirants. Thank you. Welcome, sir. You can unmute yourself, sir.
You can unmute yourself, sir. Welcome, sir.
Hello, Mr. Raja, and thanks for this opportunity. I'm sure. I think is it audible? Am I clear?
Yes, very audible.
Yes.
Okay, fine. So this is a very interesting forum where I'm supposed to give you a talk on how interesting architecture is going to be. So architecture, as such, has always been a very big eye opener in terms of what life is and what a design field is out there in the world. So that has always been very enchanting for a person like me. And when it comes to youngsters like you who are aspiring to become an architect, I would like to tell you that the whole world, it won't look the same if we don't have dwellings, if we don't have buildings, if we don't have architecture on the surface of it. So not only that, even the animal kingdom, the flora and fauna, everything that you see in our earth is going to have in it its own unique shape, its own unique presence, its own unique necessity on the surface of the earth. So we'll move on to some of the slides. I have made a very small presentation to make you understand how important it is to have architecture on the surface of the earth, and how you are going to be exposed into that field, and what you expect out of it, what you could expect out of it. So that kind of a small presentation is what I have prepared. So Raja sir, can you switch on the presentation, or shall I share it? Yours is okay. So okay. So we are talking about building construction here, how we made ourselves buildings for us to live, for us to thrive, for us to progress. So we are, first slide, sir. Next. as you could see, we have lot of inspirations, lot of teachers in the nature that we look up to, starting with the bees. There are few slides which you can run, sir, because if I so this is another dwelling made by this amazing bird for its own reproductive purposes and for its own living. So it creates this amazing nest, and you have these kites and vultures doing their own dwellings. Next, you have a nest. These are all termite hills that you see across Australia, and these are all different aspects that you would come across in the nature, which have been amazing inspirations for human beings in the years to come. So this is a mound a beaver has made, and it is able to control the temperature as well as the moisture inside the bund. This is actually made of sticks. This is made of mud and so much of other debris that it could collect, and it is done in the middle of the river. And this is done to for the beaver to have its hibernation taken care of inside this for almost 3 to 4 months. So when all these animals around us and all these tiny insects and animals around us, they are able to uh, articulate its environment around it according to its own necessities and needs, we humans possessing so much of experience and the ability to think and create, we've also done amazing stuff. So this is exactly what we are actually trying to look at. Next one, sir. So this is one of the very primitive caves in China. Uh, this is where humans initially lived. They had to manage the resources, they had to manage the calamities, they had to manage the weather and their environment around us. So something that was very easy initially was that they could get into these caves, and they can carve out soft rock into the caves and make themselves shelters. So our people, they were nomads in the initial times, and they were mostly hunters and gatherers who have been uh, moving from place to place, settling down in different areas for time periods which might be ranging from 2 weeks or even a year. So for a long time in the Stone Age, this is what we infer from our history. During the Stone Age, they were mostly nomads, not settled in one area, but then they keep moving around. Next one, sir. Slowly, next one. No, next. So we used to be the previous one. So we used to be the hunters and gatherers who have been building our own temporary shelters, and these shelters were made of twigs. These shelters were made of whatever that was available in the surrounding, and they even had animal hides to create their own stuff. So building construction is about how you manage your resources that is scattered around you, how they look at it. And for that, they have an amazing inspiration from the animals as well as from the nature. So these are all exact replicas that they could do from what they see from the nature. So mostly these were all crude huts made of wooden poles and covered with leaves. And these are all perishable. So they will perish in a week, they will perish in few months. So they have to keep maintaining their dwellings every now and then to have a permanent, comfortable stay. Next one. So once this nomadic nature got settled down, they started moving into the agrarian culture where agriculture became more and more prominent. So by having to do with agriculture, they had to settle down in a place so that they can maintain their farmlands, their fields. So when they have to settle down, their society or their group, they started uh, uh, enlarging in size. And that was one time when they wanted to have a building or a dwelling which could house all these activities inside, all these family activities as such. So a society in a whole was taking its own shape, and mostly the boulders and stones that they were able to gather around were collected and made into circular plant form structures, and later on rectangular structures got attached to it. So here they used clay, they used mud, whatever that was available that was outside, they were able to make all these nice houses, nice dwellings. So as we progress to the much advanced times during the Bronze Age, this is the age of metals where they started inventing, they started creating metals from different ores. And this is exactly the time where you had all these great civilizations which are river based civilizations coming into existence, and mostly the agricultural aspects were done in such a intensive manner that the so-called cities and the so-called settlements and towns came into existence. And this is when the mud bricks also came into existence. And because the bricks were rectangular in shape and they were handmade, the building form as well started becoming rectangular. It started having a form of its own. And with the advent of materials like tools such as axes and saws, they were able to make precise measurements. They were able to make precise shapes out of all these timber that they were able to gather around. And also, so this timber, mud, clay, and heaps of stone. So these were the predominant things that were available to human being at that time, and they were trying to exploit it to the maximum by using their creative nature. Next one. So coming down to that, after the Stone Age, we have a long span which I'm trying to skip because we are not talking exactly history here. We are talking about a basic evolution and an understanding of how we started having the different material sense, how we developed in ourselves what material to use for what purpose, how to gather that, how to make avail of it. So these are the ideas that were handed down through generations, through experiences. So coming to Egypt, most of you would have been, you would be very much aware of this civilization, Egyptian civilization, where you have these massive cut stone architectural components that are being built. On to the right in the screen, what you see is one of the very oldest pyramids in Egypt. And to the left, you see architecture made out of rock, shaping limestone, shaping sandstone. So these are all done to such a massive scale that this was totally unprecedented at that particular point in time. Next one. So next comes the classical periods where you have a great amount of inspiration from the Greeks. So here the Masons, they started putting more effort into making the stones look cleaner, making the stones to look more refined. So they started having more details to it, and details in the sense they started having a lot of ornamentations, carvings, and even the optical aspect, optical illusions. For example, when you look at a cylindrical column from a distance, it might look very slender. So for you to have a perception that it is much bigger, they used to make a curve in the middle portion of it. So those kinds of optical illusions were also carried out during these classical periods. So here, the basic technology of stone did not change much, but the way they are expressing themselves through the different varieties of stone, it started coming out. And they started having marble, granite, and all other types of precious stones that have been started that started getting into the main building industry. So here, another important aspect is till this time, people were working in terms of groups. People were working in terms of a community to make big projects and buildings. But right now, the idea of contracts came into existence. So a particular person was given a task and he was asked to do something and he had to do it. So that kind of a mentality, that kind of a working culture came into being. And Also, the drawings were done on temples as sketches or engravings on the walls, how the building has to be envisioned. So those were also part of a new oncoming ideologies in this particular era. So the fried brick was more widely used till the time, till this particular time. Mud bricks and adobe, that is sun-dried bricks, were mostly used. But right now they started firing the bricks. So when the bricks are fired, they become more stronger and they become more durable. And we started using mud mortar, lime mortar, and these are all techniques borrowed from their ancestors, and they refined it to an extent that we still call these periods as classical periods. So this is exactly when the glazed brick also appeared, and they had fired roof tiles for some of the temples. So the first instance of the roof tile, that is a terracotta roof tile, appeared in this particular period. And all these terracotta and glazing of tiles and burning of firing of bricks, all these happened because that time the pottery industry as such, it was in its most advanced stage. So that is why we call this particular era as classical period. Next. So coming to the Roman period, one of the most important aspects that we come across is the use of stone in the arches. They started using arches very extensively. And because the stone architectural culture was so refined, these arches, they started spanning some 6 meters, 7 meters, and 8 meters and all. So the buildings became larger in scale because the economics grew as well along with the buildings. The architecture grew, the people grew, and the overall society, it grew in size, in larger sizes. So the buildings as well, they started looking bigger. So people, they wanted to think of bigger materials, stronger materials. So this is exactly the Roman era, where the Roman era, they were very good administrators. They managed so much of resources all across the world. They went to so many places, acquired so much of knowledge about the local cultures, and they brought all that knowledge into their place, and they refined their own culture to an extent that most of even today's architectural aspects, they get a lot of inspiration from Roman periods. So it was in the second century BC, a very important aspect came into existence, which is it was kind of an ash material from the Mount Vesuvius, and that place is called Pozzolana. And when this particular material was used with stone and other aggregates in the sense you have sand, you have stone, you have bricks. So all these things, when combined with this pozzolanic material, you got a very nice combination of a mixture, a mortar. It was so strong that it was even ready to set inside the water. It was able to set under the water as well. So they call it concrete. So right now, most of the concrete that we have in the present context, it had its origin from this particular methodology, from this particular aspect. So coming to the possibilities of concrete, humble buildings became large sized buildings and differently shaped buildings because of the liquid nature, the fluidic nature of concrete. They were able to mold nice shapes out of it. They were able to make curves out of it. And they were able to mold it, cast it in different shapes and forms. So this led the Roman culture into discovering or inventing phenomenally sized buildings, mega sized buildings with mega sized arches, which the world never saw before. So this was a time where you will look at monumental sized buildings because of this simple material called concrete. Next one. So after this Roman period, we have Gothic, we have Renaissance, where we have so much of other architectural periods that in between. But the most significant intrusion into the building material spectrum is the steel, or the advent of. Sir, someone is actually speaking, I guess.
Yes, yes, yeah. I'll just who is actually speaking? I request everyone to actually mute their. Hello, 1 minute.
Okay. So, so apart from concrete, the other important material that we come across in the building industry is steel, and it made its presence even in 13th century in China, where they have a lot of records saying that they made
So
timber boats.
1 minute, Shakti sir. I
Yes.
think Kriti, you mute your mic, please.
Sir, I'm muted only, sir.
Kriti. Okay. I request everyone to mute your mic.
So this particular first era of industrial age, we call it an age of iron and steam. So this is exactly when the steam power was utilized to the maximum, and this was leading to the industrial revolution. So this was pre-industrial revolution, and this is exactly when the usage of steel and how a steel could be made more stronger by adding other chemicals like carbon and other magnesium, dolerite, all these materials that they have been added in the due course of time, experimenting with steel and iron to make it more stronger and durable. So what you see here in the screen is one of the very first iron bridges in across the river Swan in the Europe in England. So this is something that we need to take forward to the industrial revolution. We are in the pre-industrial revolution right now, and we have started coming depending on the steel and iron right now. Next one, sir. Next one. Yeah, so this is the second industrial age, or actually the industrial revolution times, when the steel was discovered from iron. So it is nothing but a combination of carbon, a varied combination of carbon, making the iron more stronger rather than brittle. So initially the iron, which were like cast iron and wrought iron, they were very brittle because it had very little amount of carbon or very high amount of carbon. Either it was like in the extremes. So it made the iron after smelting either too brittle or too soft or too ductile. And somehow, yes,
Shakti sir, 1 minute, 1 minute,
yes.
Shakti sir. Bala Makeshwar. Bala? Bala sir, you are there? Kindly mute your mic, sir, please. Bala sir. Kriti, you also mute your mic. It's not muted. I request you to mute your mic.
Sir, all are muted. Bala sir is recording.
Oh, it's recording. That's the reason why the sound is coming, ma'am.
I had no, but he's on mute only. Only
Okay.
you and Shakti Murugan sir are there.
Yeah, there is a small sound which is coming. Please, Shakti Murugan sir, carry on.
There is some kind of a hissing noise that I'm actually listening to, but it's okay. I think if the students are able to listen to me without any disturbance, I'm fine with it.
Your voice is still very coming out loud and clear, sir.
Okay, fine, thank you. So coming to the exact industrial revolution times, we were talking about steel and electricity. So this is the time of large structures made out of steel. So again, so far people have always looked at buildings made of stone and concrete in a very massive scale, but this is exactly an era where steel structures, which are visually very light, they are not bulky to look at. So these types of buildings came into being. One of the very famous examples is the um, Eiffel Tower. So here, this is exactly when the steel was chosen as a principal building material. And later on, the building started to look like this, what you see on the right hand side of your screen. This is exactly a steel framed high rise building. So we've never known high rises before the advent of steel. All we could do was probably 4 floors or 5 floors of construction was possible at that time with stones and bricks. But when with the advent of steel, you were able to make the walls much more thinner, and you were able to take a lot of load, and you were able to take a lot of bending moment, bending load as well. Because as we move higher and higher, it tends to sway on either side because of wind and all other aspects. And steel being the very perfect material which can take both a little amount of compression as well as a large amount of sway, that is a tensile strength. So that way, the steel was intertwined and embedded in buildings, and buildings became more taller and taller. And that is another important reason when we look at materials, construction materials or construction techniques, it is always necessary to look at the context. Context here means the timeline. At what period and what was the mentality of the people when they were trying to use a particular material. So all these things have to be taken into account. In this case, in 1880s, Chicago, with its amazing prosperity and growth and development, the land rises, the land value became so high that they cannot afford, not able to afford large extent of land on the ground. So they started moving up and they started moving vertical. So this is how you interpret when you look at a building. So the building not only gives you a physical qualities like the material or the color or the texture or the shape. It can also, if you are insightful, if you are curious to know, it can also teach you about the economics. It can also teach you about what culture the people were into. So these are all actually pointers from the buildings, from the architecture that we could learn. So this is exactly the time. In 1880s, we also had electric powered elevators, so people can move from the ground to anywhere up or down. 7 floors, 8 floors, 10 floors. So all that was possible in a matter of a few decades. Next one.
1 minute, sir.
Yes. And after that, after the industrial era, we didn't have much of big transformations till now. And when we come to the modern building practices, the buildings that you look at, this is one building in Bangalore. So right now, the buildings are products of so many aspects of human culture. Probably it is a symbol of prosperity, it is a symbol of wealth, it is a symbol of social status, it is a symbol of technological advancement, it is a symbol of the, the closeness with the nature, it is a symbol of how sustainable you think, it is a symbol of mindset. So initially the buildings were very straightforward functional units, which was giving you shelter, because from being a shelter, these buildings have right now come to a place where it is not shelter anymore. It has a lot of other value additions to it. So now the whole building industry has become very complex. So we are not primitive in thinking, uh, we are not primitive in assuming buildings as just dwellings anymore. Right now, we have advanced to an extent that we want buildings to make statements. We want buildings to convey our own thought process. We want buildings to convey our ideologies about life and sustainability across. So right now, with the advent of sustainability, because the idea of sustainability came when suddenly the whole world realized that we are actually utilizing all the resources and we are not leaving anything behind for our future generations. So in the 1960s and 70s, after so much of development and pollution and population explosion, so much of all these aspects, suddenly we as a group of people living on the earth, suddenly we find ourselves that the resources are depleting. So that is exactly when the idea of sustainability came into play. We started talking about how to reduce our utility, how to reduce our usage of all these materials, how we can replenish some resource, how we can give back to nature what we have acquired from it. So these aspects came into our minds slowly. And right now we are in a much advanced state of thinking, where the so-called green buildings, the so-called energy efficient buildings have come into a major realm right now, because these buildings lets you live a very comfortable life without depending much on the earth's resources. So the less we disturb the earth's resources, the better the future of our generations are. So that is the main idea again regarding the green practices, which are also small tributaries or small sub classifications of the modern building practices. Next one, sir. So here you will be able to have a glimpse of what all that we have gone through in this huge time span, from starting from 25,000 BC, where you had painted caves and then mammoth bone huts and then mud brick works and then stilt houses in water. So from that we have come down each and every century down to something which is green architecture, which is responsive architecture, which is artificially intelligent architectural practices, which is involving so much of machine learning. And so here the last part is actually kept empty because it is still evolving. We don't have any any type of identification for the present era buildings, because we are in an era of transformation, and this is exactly a time for students like you to get hold of uh, a particular avenue in this particular building field, in this particular design field, and, and hold on to it, and probably do research in it and come out with your own ideas, because this is an era where we are looking for new answers, we are looking for new dimensions, we are looking for new perceptions. So far, all our own thoughts have been almost similar one another. They have not had any path breaking or paradigm shifting ideologies. So probably you people with young minds and curious minds, when you are questioning these aspects, and when you are logically questioning and rethinking about what has been happening and how we are going about it, probably you will have a much better future, probably you'll have a much better platform to work on. So architecture is not just about buildings. Architecture is about economics. Architecture is about people. So in one of the slides we initially saw, architecture is about people, place, and time. So it is manifestation of human activities that happens in a place over time. So we shape our place. We live in a place and then we shape up our place, just like how the animals do. But the animals, they keep doing the same thing over and over and again. But we keep transforming, we keep evolving, we keep introducing new stuff into it. So this way, this architectural practice is going to be so versatile that you guys will be having great fun pursuing it. Next one, sir. So here, here, after looking at all these evolutions, there are few pointers based on which we understand why we proceed, why we look for something, why we look for something different. So here are the answers. Because we have always been looking for durability. We wanted to increase the durability of materials. So initially from perishable materials, we went to stone, and then from stone, we went to concrete. From concrete, we went to new things like plastics and nanomaterials. And there are so many things that might come in the future. So in all the times that we are trying new materials, one of our underlying principle is for increased durability. Okay, that is one aspect. What is the other aspect? We wanted to have greater height and greater span. We want to build big. We don't want any more smaller buildings. We wanted to go bigger. So when we want to build something really far away, I mean, like, really bigger in the sense, a big bridge across a gorge, or a very tall tower that is covering all other buildings, all other man-made structures across the world. So that kind of an approach is there with most of the people these days. So that is one thing that is pushing us to do innovate. And other aspect is the degree of control exercised over the environment, interior environment. So we are living inside a place and we want to control the temperature, we want to control the wind movement, we want to control the illumination inside it, we want to control the brightness and the glare. So all these control systems of how we can manipulate and articulate our environment, this is again another push factor for us towards inventing new materials, rediscovering new materials. And lastly, the energy aspect. So how little we could disturb the earth or the earth's resources, the mother earth's resources, so that we can have an optimum living condition. So this kind of an mind thought process led to people coining the word energy efficiency. So there are a lot of ways one could actually accomplish energy efficiency. So it could range from human power to developing so many new machineries and artificial intelligence based energy efficiency techniques that these days the buildings have started using. So these are the four important parameters or attributes through which we are actually developing. The evolution happens because of all these four, not anything else, mainly because of all these four aspects. And there are other aspirations like the physical, I mean, the social aspect, the social cultural aspect, but they play a very subtle and a smaller role when compared to all these four major aspects in how we produce new materials every year for this building industry. Next one, sir. So this is this is a flow chart. It might look little confusing initially, but actually this is a very simple sequence that if you put little attention to, you'll decipher it very easily. So it starts with the site and then the site attributes. So you are looking at a site. This is about how we conceive a project. This is about how a project goes from A to Z in its holistic completion. So who are all the people involved? What are the different processes that are involved? And I don't want to get into detail, but when there is a project, before the project is actually getting its shape, there is something called need or necessity for somebody. So with the need or necessity, someone approaches a technical person to come out with a project. So this technical person, probably an architect or an engineer or a project manager, he tells the client, see, sir, you want this. So there are these things available in the world right now. You could do that, you could do this. So now they sit and they discuss and then they come out with a scheme. Okay, fine. This is my requirement. I wanted to build a house. So there are so many different ways of building houses. And the client gets exposed to the budgets, the client gets exposed to the material aspects, he also gets exposed to all other nuances the building industry could throw onto him. So once he gets exposed, he is very clear of what he is wanting and what he is going to get. So right now he is trying to identify people who can actually provide him what he
Yeah.
wants. So these are the consultants, the so-called consultants like architect,
Right.
the interior designers, the landscape architects, the service personnel, like the people who manage the services inside a building. Services in the sense it could be the plumbing, it could be the water supply, it could be the sanitary aspects. So all these things, there are experts who are taking care of all these things, who can do this in a very professional way. So all these people come together and they give an economical feasibility to the client. So the client is okay. So now I know these are the things I want. These are the consultants I need in my team. So okay, fine. So you all give me a concept. So all these people they sit together and they come out with a concept, and the client gets to view it, to analyze it, and to experience it through various means, probably by through 3D visualization, through a drawing, or through a video. So these days, all these experience enhancement aspects have come. So a person, if he is willing to spend some bucks in it, probably he can get a realistic experience of what he is up to. So once this is done, once the client is satisfied, then comes the other stages where you get into the contracting, you get into the construction stage, where you are looking for contractors, able people who can actually build what is there given in your drawings. So once the next slide, next one. So once the contractors and all these people are finished, I mean, or finalized, along with it, you are also finalizing the approval, because you are going to build something in a very permanent nature on your on your own land in a city, or in a town, or in a village, which is obviously having a governance. So it is always necessary to get a proper approval or a sanction from the government, and that is exactly what the town planning says, what town planning does. It gives you a sanctioned approval that, okay, fine, you can build your house here, you can build your hospital here, you can build your airport here, so like that. So this is also a very necessary step in acquiring or in the overall building process. So once this is done, the detailed design aspect is done, and then the building approval application is sent, and then the construction documents are done. You know what a construction document is? The construction document explains about how it has to be constructed, in what manner, what material, what technique, in what time. So these are all managed by somebody called a project manager, or we call them PMC, a project management consultant. So the whole process of this project formulation and till the project end, you have numerous agencies, numerous individuals coming in together, chipping in their own experiences to make the whole architectural project into a reality. It is not like any other aspects. This is one reason we always say architecture is the mother of all art forms in the world, because it involves other people, it involves a lot of other stakeholders. It is just not art. You are not doing a simple art form to either sell it or to your own personal happiness. Here, as an artist, you are doing something for the people, for them to live, for them to flourish in that. So that way, architecture is a very complex form of art that can exist. That is one aspect. The other aspect, when you get into architectural studies, not necessary that you will end up as an architect. There are so much of other avenues in architecture that might interest you. For example, while you are talking about, while you are learning design, you will learn optics, you will learn the aesthetical aspects, you will learn how to draw, you will learn how to make models. So you probably, if you are hooked into model making, you will end up as a modeler in your future. If you happen to like graphic design, you will end up being a graphic design later on. So not necessary that you will end up as an architect, but this architecture is an amazing platform to all different types of creative fields that you can venture out into. So this graphic designing is an amazing field. The photography, you have poetry, because to do good architecture, you need to have articulative speech. You need to articulate your thought process. You need to articulate your minds. What is inside you? This is, after all, a communication that is from inside that is going out onto a building. So when you are thinking hard, when you are thinking creative, when you are thinking logical and sensible, then your architecture is equally valuable. So that way, if you are good enough in oratory skills, probably that could fetch you some nice niche market in architecture. So whatever damn thing that you have, quality or talent that you have, you will always have a place in architectural field. So architecture, to me, it has opened up so many avenues personally. So right now, though I am an architect by profession, by passion, I am a photographer. By passion, I am a person who loves to restore old buildings. So apart from being an architect, I'm also doing all these things. So the opportunities that are going to be there when you finish, or when you are learning actually architecture, is going to be spellbound, and it is going to be so vast that you will never regret that you are going to take up architecture. So next one slide, sir. So this is about green alternatives, but this could wait. In the sense, I have already spoken of these green alternatives. I think with that, we are coming to the conclusion of this slide presentation. And right now, I am open to any questions, any queries that you could throw across. This is not necessary, sir. It is about, no, this is not necessary. This particular slide, you can switch off the slide and you can go back to the original speaker mode. So if there is any questions, any
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much, Shakti sir. It was a beautiful presentation, and you have explained the entire history with materials and technology so well. I think the kids could relate it very properly, and I request the kids to actually ask questions if you have any queries to Shakti Murugan sir. You can unmute them, sir. Can we unmute them, and you raise your hand so that I can actually unmute. Shall I unmute all?
Yes, sir.
Okay. முன்னாடி பஸ் ஸ்டாண்ட் அங்க தான் ப்ரொபோசல் கொடுத்தாங்க.
Oh, so everybody is having a good music, huh? Good. Sorry, that's good. Okay, Abba, yes, Abba. I'll just unlock you. 1 minute, Abba. Yes, now you can speak. Yes, Abba. Abba, is there any question?
Any clarifications, anything that you want?
Any clarification, anything you want? Yeah, please speak, Shakti sir.
See, I am not trying to canvas everyone into making and getting into architecture. So I'm just trying to share my experiences here and how elated I am doing architectural practice. So there are a lot of misconceptions about architectural practice these days, but don't lend your ears for those things. So if you want to do something, obviously you have a nice establishment and a nice setup for you to pursue architecture and come out with nice bright colors. So don't ever, you make your own decisions. You have to think, you need to evaluate your capacity, and then accordingly you need to go about it. So
excuse me, sir.
Yes, Mithilesh, carry on, Mithilesh.
Sir, about the using the alternative materials other than steel for interiors.
Okay.
Most of the residential buildings, I've seen they're starting to go towards this timber flooring or bamboo flooring, but won't the strength be the strength won't be the same, no? So there will be a difference. So how will, if initially we plan with let's say some conventional building material, and then if they want us to change it, then won't all the aspects of construction change? Because either we should initially start planning with green architecture, or it might be a total change in the plan, right? How do we do?
Fine. See, let me be very clear about this. There is something called green architecture. Okay, what is green architecture? Anything that is going to have less effect on the resources, or when it is going to have a less carbon footprint, that can be called as green. So green practices have been there with our system from the ancient times, when we were sensible, when we were logical, when we were thoughtful. That was almost 90 percentage being green. So being green doesn't mean you are into a new world, you are bringing up new things. No, not like that. So it is the process through which you construct something. So there are people who design buildings just because they wanted to have green buildings, and just because they wanted to have good green ratings. So when you are keeping this rating in your mind, probably you will also start jumping onto different materials, because these materials have each ratings. So what you will do, you will take a list and you will make a list of things that you are going to use, which are going to have a certain energy value. And based on that, you will calculate and you will come out with a green building with the most least amount of energy consumption. So that is one way of doing it. And there is another way of looking at it. So this is exactly the point I'm trying to tell you here. How we look at architecture as a project. What is the intent behind it? What is the purpose behind it? If you are going to do an interiors, this interiors is going to be part of that architectural entity. It is not going to be a separate entity, right? So this architectural aspect, whatever visual language that you're going to impart into the interiors, is has to somehow reflect the overall architecture that it is going to be housed in. I see. If I'm like this, I cannot have a different finger set with me. I cannot have a different set of eyes or nose. So it has to be proportionate. It has to be in conjunction with all the other aspects of my whole body. So that is what we say as proportioning systems, relationship, and all that. So this interiors aspect, to me, as in terms of my personal opinion, I cannot do it on a separate basis. I have to get inspired from the architecture to do my interiors. That is one aspect. Next, the intent of the client, what the client wants. Probably if they are very much inclined towards having wooden surfaces because they like wood, it is better, it is fair enough to go in for wood. We don't have to give any other justifications. If someone wants to have a place full of glass where all the light has to come inside and they have to look at everything around them, fine, let it be. It is their wish and they could be in a place like that. It is our duty to make it practically feasible and viable for them to have a place like that. So it is all these crazy ideas and nice ideas that actually bring new architectural vocabulary. So we don't have to stick to a single regime. We don't have to stick to a single conventional aspect. We have to break things. We have to do it on a case to case basis. Every person needs something different. Every person needs something unique. So I think I answered what you were trying to ask, right?
Thank you, Shakti sir. I think it has been answered. I think I request Kavita ma'am, moderator, to actually take over.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Shakti Murugan, sir, for the awesome session that you
Thank you.
gave and for the
Thank
wonderful
you.
insight that you have shared with them and a real wide spectrum 360-degree of architecture. I can
Thank you.
really say that. I'm sure now they have an idea of the awesomeness of architecture. So much. Now we shall call upon the children, the moderators of the day, to take over. Kindly be a little fast. We're running short on time, so we can be very fast about it. So I first call upon Sanjeev. You can put on your video and unmute yourself.
Okay,
And
okay, ma'am.
yeah, and I would like you to introduce yourself and make your presentation very quickly.
Okay,
Move
okay,
on.
ma'am. Okay,
Thank
this is Sanjeev from Chennai, Tamil Nadu. Today, I'm going to talk about Prakadishwara temple. Let me put on the presentation. One minute. Yep. Yeah. This is Prakadishwara temple. It is located in Tamil Nadu, Thanjavur, or Thanjavur, you can call it. It is also called as what is that? Dakshina Meru. Meru means peak, and in Hindi it is Shikhar. Dakshina is a Sanskrit word which means south. So Dakshina Meru means peak of the south, and it was a temple dedicated to Lord Shiva. It was built by Rajaraja Cholan. The idea of building this uh, temple was given by his sister Kundavai Prati, who is considered to be the right hand of Rajaraja Cholan, and she was one of the best strategists at that time. Um, and Rajaraja Cholan had a lot of nicknames. Rajaraja Cholan is also one of his nickname. His real name was Arul Morivarman. Also, he had another name called Ponniyin Selvan. Actually, Ponniyin Selvan is a epic written by Kalki. I'll get to that later if time permits. And it was built in the year 1003 to 1010 AD. These are some of the pics of Pragateshwara Koil, I mean temple. It is also known as Tanjai Periya Koil. And the temple was entirely built using granite. And around 60 kilometers, there were no the availability of granite was zero. So we can wonder how the people, our forefathers, our ancestors would have built this massive structure by using 1.3 lakh tons of granite, which is quite amazing and magnificent, whatever. And also the Vimana is 216 feet high, and at its peak, there is a stone, a single piece stone, which weighs about 80 ton. In modern days, we have equipments like crane, elevators, and other mechanical equipments, which helps us to lift heavy weight. But in those days, they didn't have all this mechanical equipments with them, but they have managed to lift this massive single stone, carved single stone piece up way through this Vimana, which is quite wondering again.
Sanjeev, can you make it little faster, Sanjeev? Yeah.
Okay, so okay, sir.
We are running out of time,
Okay.
so I want you to actually make it little faster.
Okay, let's get
Yeah,
into
fast.
okay, let's get into the uniqueness of the temple. As you can see in this picture, that the height of the lingam is greater than the height of the Garbhagriha's entrance. Again, we can wonder how the people managed to get this linga inside the womb chamber. And it is prohibited to keep the linga inside the Garbhagriha and to build the temple. It is prohibited, and it's like insulting the god. And one more interesting thing to note about it, about this temple, is the Vimana of the temple never casts shadow to the ground, as you can see in this picture. And also the measurement of the temple is associated with Tamil letters. See, Tamil people were very much proud about their language, so they did this to this temple. The measurement of the temple is associated with Tamil letters. Tamil letters, like for instance, the number of Tamil alphabet is 247, and the distance between the Nandi and the Lingam is 247 feet. Again, interesting uniqueness of the temple. These are a few more photos of the Pragadishwara temple. And these sculptures were entirely made using granite. But when you hit the weapons like the sword or the shield in this sculpture, it produces a ringing sound. Basically, a metal produces a ringing sound, but in this temple, stone produces a ringing sound, which is quite fantastic and fascinating. Back then, Rajaraja Choran also predicted that some foreigners would capture this South Indian side territory, and make territories. Actually, it was shown in one of the sculptures, which was put up in that Vimana. Actually, I was not able to get that picture. And about this inscription, the interesting thing about the temple is its inscription. Raja Solan was the first king to document archives of his rule in the form of stone tablets and copper plates. Unfortunately, all these stone tablets and copper plates are missing today. But still, the archaeologists have managed to retrieve two of these copper plates till date. The copper plates were made up of gems, stones. They were decorated using gemstones, golds, etc. And also the scripts inside the temples describes about the life of Rajaraja Soran, how his next generation lived, and all other stuffs. And that's it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sanjeev, for an information, you are sitting in front of a person who knows zero to infinitive about Pragadishwara temple. That is the architect Shakti Murugan and his father, because he's from Thanjavur. He's a king of that temple. He's literally know each and everything about temple. And I would like you to actually have some words with him.
Can stop share of your screen, Sanjay.
Stop sharing your screen.
Okay, ma'am.
So there are some informations which are actually authentic, has to be authenticated. That also has to be done, Sanjeev. I will stop the sharing regarding that Englishman you were talking about.
Yeah.
we'll have an authentication regarding that. Okay.
Okay, sir.
It's a good, you're standing in front of Shakti Murugan sir. We get jittery actually, talking about Pragadishwara. I'm sorry, like just a minute. Pragadishwara temple. Sir, I unmuted you, sir. Yes. Sir,
So,
I unmuted you.
okay, so this Pragadishwara temple is a monument done for the thought of Shaivism, the
Yeah, I forgot to tell
Saiva
that.
and Vaishnava. Okay, so it is about there are two different ideologies, Vaishnavam and Vainavam. Saivam. So this is the Saivite cult for which this particular temple was erected, and as you said, Dakshina Meru, and it was like the Kailasa, so the Kailasa of the south. So that's how he named it. And he wanted to build something in a very large, massive scale that was totally unprecedented in Tamil history or in the South or Indian history as well. So that was the idea of Rajaraja when he wanted to do that. And not only this is not just about spirituality. This is about administration. By doing such a big project, you look at it in a project through an eyes of a project manager. Look at it through an eyes of an administrator. You look at it. This particular building, it needed so much of people's efforts and coordination that the Thanjavur as a city, it came into prominence, that it grew bigger and bigger because of this single project. So it is just not spiritual and religious nature that is attributed to these buildings. There are a lot of other politically motivated, administratively motivated ideas, which the people or the great administrators they used in a very polite and in a very tactical manner. So that way, I'm not degrading anyone here, but his thoughts of creating something of this monumental proportions has never been done after him or before him. So that was his specialty. And all these people who had contributed, their names were written in those inscriptions. What you showed was the Maikirti of Rajaraja. So it will also tell you how many people were involved, what were given to them in terms of barter system. So the whole system of bartering, that is like getting something and giving back something, all that is actually engraved in the temple walls. Not only that, all the isab in the sense like all the calculations, the ledgers that are taken care of, everything is written there. This European hat guy on the northern side, that was probably a later addition. It was never there in the initial times. It was probably during the some motivated person would have done it, but it is never there in the initial time. So that is one clarification. And regarding the 247 length, 247 feet length, and at that time the letters in Tamil, it never had 247 alphabets, so it was much lower than that. So the classical Tamil, that what we have right now, or in the other, this is exactly what has these many alphabets. So it was probably a coincidence. And the Nandi that you have in the front is from the Nayaka period. The whole temple was built from different periods. The temple with the main prakara, it had two prakaras in the sense two storied prakaras. So these were built by Rajaraja along with the main Vimana and the Gopuram in the front, and there was nothing else. So later on, the Pandyas built the Subramanya Stala, and then the Marathis built the Ganesha, and then the Amman Stala was built during the Nayakas, different portions. So there are a lot of additions to the building as such. So one has to experience the proportions and the way they would have conceived such a nice building actually in person. So we just by looking at, I think I guess most of you people who are listening to this would have been experiencing that, would have experienced personally in that place. So that is it.
Yeah, it's a great,
Thank you, sir.
actually, the person who was sitting with you. So I just wanted you to actually hear it from him. He is a person who knows everything about Pragadishwara. Thank you so much, Shakti Murugan sir. It was
Thank
a
you, sir.
pleasure. I request now the second moderator from the Kriti Raman to actually, present her works,
Hello.
his works.
Hello.
Yes, Kriti, please
Yeah,
go
can
on.
you hear me?
Go. Yes, we can
Yeah.
hear you, Kriti, and you can see the slide also.
Okay, sir. Yeah. So good morning, everybody. Good evening, everybody. I'm Kriti Raman, and I will be the moderator for this wonderful evening. And I'm just going to show some of my artworks, basically my feelings and emotions. So let's get started. Yeah. So I am basically an animal lover because pets give us unconditional love to humans and they expect the same in response. But this doesn't happen always. I'll tell you why in the end of the session. So these are lovebirds, the African lovebirds. And next, it's a beagle, and this is a cat. Then this is a leopard. Have given it a yellow color highlight. And then some of my paintings. Yeah. So this was a painting which I did in my 8th grade. It's nothing but a flower which is kept in a glass vase.
Is there a smiley? Is there a smiley in the center of that flower?
No, it's the pole in the grain, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, dear. Okay, next.
Yeah.
Carry on.
And next. This is the flowers. This is an oil painting I did in 8th standard. And yeah, I have given it a blurred style so that it looks realistic. And then next, yeah. So this symbol of divine love. I as a kid, I have always admired the love tales of Radha and Krishna. So here I have painted this. And next, yeah, this is the portrait of a lady. And then this again a portrait of a royal princess.
Okay.
And do you everyone recognize this?
Yes. Anyone recognize this? It's beautiful.
Anyone?
Ganesh Aravind said. Oh, there is something happening, right?
Yeah.
The tragedy that has happened in Kerala.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly. The death of the pregnant elephant. This underlines how brutally her trust in humans have been betrayed. Herself and her unborn child, which has willed into a watery grave.
Yeah, thank you, Malvika, Ganesh, and all these people who said in the messages that it is an incident. Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's a nice Ganesha. Always the
very
Ganesha is a celebration for us. Okay. Thank you so much, Kriti. I request now Sanjeev and Kriti to introduce the speakers to the dais.
I would like to call upon Abai Philip. Abai Philip is an architect and a professor. He has done his PG in general architecture and as well as UG in SRM University. After his graduation, was working in conservation project with UNESCO for about 6 months, and after that, he worked with Concept Infinitum as senior architect in Bangalore till 2015. During his practice, he has worked on the different projects in residences, apartments, and hotels. And from 2015, as academician in SRM University till date, I'd like to call upon Abai Philip. Welcome, sir.
Hello. Is it audible?
Yes, sir. We can. Yes, it is audible, sir. You can carry on.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Good evening, all. It's good to see many participants. I would like to appreciate them both the mod, Kanka ma'am and Raja sir for conducting a very effective sessions during this pandemic situation. As Shakti Murugan sir said, I have written it earlier, that architecture is a creative field and branches out to various other categories. It is different for each person who perceive it in their own way. So this vast field paves a way which helps to take up each of our own passion and interest and would be one among the professionals. So I want to thank all the student moderators for introducing me, and it gives me immense pleasure.
Yeah. Abhay sir? Abhay sir, you are there? You finished? Abhay sir?
Uh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You finished. Okay,
Hello.
thank you. I request. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. There was a issue with the network, I guess.
No
Hello.
problem, sir.
Is it audible, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, it is audible, sir. Please carry on, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. It gives me immense pleasure to address you all here in this session. Thank you, sir, for the opportunity. Thank you all. And all the best, students. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abhay, sir. I request now Kriti to actually, introduce the next
I
speaker.
request the host to unmute Susita Nagarajan.
Yeah, you can actually go ahead. Kriti, you kindly, speak.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So, our warm welcome to Professor N. Susita in SRM School of Architecture and Interior Design. She has done a master's in interior design, MPhil in interior design, MBA marketing, and now she's pursuing PhD in role of lighting and color in commercial. And experience in SRM SAID is 12 years of teaching in BDS 4-year program. And the subject she handles is studio subject, which is basically basic design, commercial spaces, residences, offices, etc. And her theory subjects are history of interior design, light and color, furniture design and construction, textile design, and contemporary interior designers. So let's welcome, Ma'am.
Thank you, Kruti. Good evening, all. I'm Suseta, Assistant Professor in SRM School of Architecture and Interior Design. I have been here for the past 12 years. I take this opportunity to welcome you all to SRM School of Architecture and Interior Design. I would like to express the specialty in SRM School of Architecture and Interior Design. The SRM School of Architecture and Interior Design has offering the courses BArch, MArch, BDes and MDes in interior design and PhD. The study of architecture is used to describe physical structures such as buildings. However, it also describes the technicalities of designing those buildings as well as the methods of construction. Interior design is another course. It's an enhancing the interiors of a building to achieve a healthier and more aesthetically pleasing environment for the people using the space. The design and coordination of the decorative elements of the interiors of a residence, commercial spaces like branded shops and boutiques, offices, theater and star hotels and other structural space, including color schemes, lighting, fittings, furnitures, furnishings, finishes, etc. So there will be a coordination between all these elements and space. That is interior design. Then studying an architecture and interior design degrees are challenging but rewarding. An integral part of an architecture and design degree or the development of practical design skills, meaning that a large proportion of time is spent doing studio-based design project. SRM School of Architecture and Interior Design provides the facilities for activities such as design studios, lecture halls, and smart classrooms, CAD labs, model making workshops, a material museum, construction yard, a library, etc. Here, we have a separate library for architecture and design. It contains more than 6,000 volumes of books on architecture and interior design courses, and 25 national and international journals and magazines in our library, including e-books and e-journals, etc. Apart from that, we, the faculty, preparing the students in the first year level to acquire and enhance creative problem solving skills, including critical thinking and developing design concepts and solutions and presentation skills through conducting workshops on design thinking with an experts. To make the student to understand the fundamental principles and elements of design in the first year level, in design studio classes, we interact with the students in one-to-one design discussion. To provide exposure through case study visits, conducting workshops, product presentation, and conducting seminar, symposium, etc. And we encourage the student to learn painting, sculptures, 3D models, etc. in first year level. The artist will help you to develop skills in basics, in drawings, sketchings, and colorings, etc. So you students no need to worry about that you don't know any sketching and coloring and all. So first year itself you will learn through the artist. These would allow for creative expression. It would develop a sense of aesthetics and also enhance creativity. And we providing drawing skills and digital illustration and architectural modeling also. The Department of Architecture emphasizes design education through diverse experiences, which include learning through making, collaborative research, and community engagement, and to provide our graduates with an educational foundation for exemplary professional practice and personal career fulfillment, to prepare them to be critical thinkers and problem solvers who will serve, enrich, and sustain their professions and communities. The SRM School of Architecture has always focused its attention on nurturing individual talent. Throughout your degree, we will encourage you to find your own creative path by innovative approaches. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ricky?
Thank you, Abhi Philip and architect Susital. Thank you very much, Shakti Murugan sir. It was an awesome session.
I should thank you, the moderator, I mean, Kavita ma'am and Raja sir, and all the aspirants who are here, who are eagerly listening to these talks. And so I wish them all the best and a great future ahead. And I thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much. So we shall meet. We have come to the end of the session, and we shall meet tomorrow sharp at 9 o'clock in the morning. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Rajesh sir.